Seller financing, taking over house payments with pre-foreclosures. Hey gang, this is Mike with myrealestatedojo.com, and I want to share with you a story that happened in the last real estate crash. I did some marketing to find some motivated sellers, and this firefighter called me in White Rock Lake in Dallas, which is a very nice area right next to one of the nicest lakes for bicycle trails. At that time I didn't know this because I never visited that area. But anyways, to simplify the story, the firefighter wife had called me and they were behind on their house payments 2 months. And this is what we call pre-foreclosure. The bank hasn't foreclosed on them, but they were behind on their house payments for 2 months. And it was going to be going on the third month, but it was just the very beginning of the month. So they tried to sell their home with a real estate agent and they couldn't because of the meltdown, and they didn't have a whole lot of equity. They probably had about 15% equity in the property, and the market was coming down. Now, it doesn't matter if the market was going up or down. These people were highly motivated and they wanted to sell their home. And they also had 2 big Rottweilers, if I'm not mistaken, Dobermans, if I'm not mistaken. And so what happened is that I offered them to buy their home. So again, they were motivated sellers. They tried to sell their home. We were in a recession for a real estate crash, and they wanted to get out of the situation because they knew that if they didn't sell their home, they were going to have a foreclosure, and that was going to hurt their credit for, you know, at least 6 to 7 years. So I offered them to buy their home with just taking over their house payments, what I call seller financing, aka subject to real estate investing. And I just told them this: hey, if I can buy your home and step into your shoes and make the monthly payments, would that work for you? Okay. And they said, well, are you going to make the back payments on the property? And I said, yes, I'll make the back payments on this property. And their monthly payments were like $1,100. I can't remember exactly because it's been quite a while now, but not that expensive. So all in all, I promised to pay for their move. And at that time I owned a moving company, and I promised to make their back payments, which I did, and I did provide their moving, and I paid for their closing costs, which again, I was in total control because I didn't go to one of these fancy title companies. I just hired my attorney to draw up the paperwork. So I was in total control of the closing costs. All in all, I got into this house roughly about $3,000. I made their back payments. I paid my movers at a deep discount to go do their move since I owned the moving company. I paid for the closing costs. I was in total control because I could control what I wanted to pay for. For example, I didn't pay for title policy, and that saved me thousands of dollars because my attorney looked into the chain of command and realized that this is probably a high possibility of being a clean title. So I decided to save money that way. XY and all the other junk fees title companies charge. So anyways, I took over the monthly payments to seller financing for roughly $3,000. And I also told them, because I'm a dog lover, that I'll keep their dogs for about a month or two till they were able to find a home for these dogs, because, you know, the owners and me didn't believe we should kill these dogs. So I was nice enough to, you know, while I'm kind of lightly rehabbing it, to hold on to these dogs, which I did, as I promised. And fast forward 7 years later, I sold this home, right? Made $100,000 in profit in equity cash out. At the same time, I made monthly cash flow from this property for 7 years, at least $400 a month. Okay, so as you add it up, that's significant return, because I understood how to buy houses for motivated sellers with seller financing. And all in all the money that I had to buy the property was $3,000, because I made their 2-month back payment, I paid for their closing cost, and moved in. Now, I did say I did a light rehab, and the reason I did the light rehab, I didn't have to. The house was moved in condition, but I wanted to pull out the carpet and put these special vinyls that I had bought for all my rental property. I wanted to paint it this specific white that I had bought for all my rental properties, so it would be easier to maintain, because I knew I was going to hold on to this property because I had bought it in the middle of the crash, to start up the crash, that I had to hold on to it for a few years. So I was bunkling down, getting the house prepped up so I don't have to spend so much money renovating it every time a renter moved out. Because when you put vinyl, these types of vinyls that I had put, and I had negotiated pallets and pallets of this vinyl, Armstrong vinyl, that normally sells for like $2 or something, for like 15 cents. So I bought so many paddles, and that was the goal. And I had a moving company, so I was able to bring it, have the labor to pick it up, have a place to store it. So it was a really good deal for me, and it saved me a lot of money because I didn't have to change the carpets so often when the renters moved out. So I did a little light rehab. I didn't have to. The house is in perfect condition. I could have just turned around and re-rented it out, but I did that because I knew that it was going to cost me a lot less money down the line. So I did a little light rehab. I rented it out for 6-7 years, and then I sold it. And here's the catch, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't even sell it for top dollars. I was at that time what I call a motivated seller. I was an emotionally motivated seller, and I sold the property for $100,000 less than what the retail price goes for, because I wanted to get a cash sale. I wanted to get a quick sell. I wanted exactly the terms that I wanted, which is the buyer pays all the closing costs. There's no inspection, there's no this. So if you want the property for $100K, you buy it as is and you close ASAP. And a buyer showed up for exactly to my tune, to what I wanted. And I was willing to shave off $100K of equity for the buyer investor to make money off of it, while I walked out with hundreds of thousands of dollars myself, with $3,000 investing. So seller financing, subject to real estate investing, creative real estate strategies, they all work, but the hard part is understanding how to structure deals. The next hard part is really understanding how to find these sellers. The next hard part is to filter out these sellers, and this is something that I have right now. You can go to myrealestatedojo.com and download my Ninja phone script, because a couple of the situations that I just talked about that was hard, it's going to solve that for you. Like understanding a motivated seller from a non-motivated seller. Every seller is not a motivated seller. Not every seller is going to do owner financing, just like not every seller that's going to sell something is going to the pawn shop. So imagine you don't understand a motivated seller from a non-motivated seller, and you're spending all your time talking to non-motivated sellers and giving seller financing. Well, what do you think the answer is going to be? Failure. Okay. This type of strategy, what I call seller financing, taking over house payments, only works with motivated sellers. I can tell you another story of another seller that was highly motivated that I met through guerrilla marketing. They worked for the city, and they lived in Grand Prairie, Texas, in the last crash, and they were going into a divorce that the wife had left them, and the guy was 2 months behind too. And so I bought his house. His house was really, really nicely renovated. He already had done like flooring, installed the pool and all kinds of stuff. It was just 2-story, had a game room, and I mean, that was a fancy home. And it was right next to a working class factory, Lockheed Martin. So, it was a great rental property for me. And I was able to buy this guy's property just by making his back payments, paying for his move, which cost me like $100 or something, because again, I own a moving company. And because the guy had nothing in there, the wife had cleaned them out. So, and that was a great property because I moved into that property myself and I lived in it, because I don't know if you remember, Obama had a situation where if you didn't own a house and you moved in, he would give you $10,000. And that's how I got into my first house, because at that time I didn't have kids, I wasn't married, so I had 3 businesses to run. I really didn't need a house. And so, but when Obama offered that for your taxes, I said, you know what, let me just get a house for myself and move into it. And that was my first house that I bought. I got $10,000 back in credit from my taxes. I got a house where I was able to buy the house by just taking over the payments, And you know, it was a great introduction to seller financing. I was like, holy crap, this stuff works. And then the next property was for investing, and the next property was for investing, and the next property was for investing, and the next property was for investing. And every time I bought these houses, I always asked myself, would I live in this house? Because you know, I always treated my investment properties I don't want it in war zones. I don't want it in areas that I would be scared to live in, or I wouldn't want to live in. So I only bought properties where I would live in, right? And you know, some of my rentals I did eventually move into, like that house that I talked about earlier with the firefighter. After I lived with this guy that I just talked to you about, that he was a city worker, his wife had left him. I moved into that house. I lived there for a couple of years, and then I moved to my other rental property because you know, I like the lake a lot better. So you know, seller financing, owner carry, subject to real estate investing, aka taking over house payments or mortgage payments, really works. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy, ladies and gentlemen, okay? There's a lot of moving pieces to it. Let me be honest with you. It's not like a digital watch, like, you know, it's like an analog watch, like, you know, like a Rolex. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. That's why I highly recommend joining the new flip, because the new flip teaches you all those skills you need, all those moving parts. It's like a training wheel without getting in and putting yourself in major risk. You know, what do I mean? If you want to flip houses, you want to buy houses subject to, you got to have some cash, you got to put it in jeopardy. With the new flip, you'll learn all the skills you need to have success